All right, here we go. Adam22, no jumper. Welcome back.
What's up, man?
Welcome back. Congrats on all your success.
Thank you.
I see the YouTube channel has been growing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're like 3 point something now, million?
3.6, something
3.6 million, yep. Think you're going to catch up to us at some point? You know, you're less than $1 million away now. You're less than $1 million away.
Can't catch up to the clip god. I don't know.
The clip god. But you're also doing great on TikTok.
Appreciate it.
Instagram TV and all the different platforms, man. Congrats.
Thank
Congrats
you.
on building a great business.
Appreciate it.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So, someone you've interviewed before, Jake Paul, just knocked out Ben Askren. Did you watch it?
I did.
What'd you think?
You know, my first reaction was like, Ben Askren got right the fuck back up, and I felt like, all right, they're really not going to let this guy fight. But then when I saw another angle of it, I did see the wobbly knees on Ben Askren. He did look like he was falling over a little bit. I mean, you know, there was a state of mind that I had previous to this where it was like, I just assumed that everybody who had ever fought in the UFC could beat Jake Paul's ass.
Right.
And it turns out that that's not the case. So I found at least one guy who was in the UFC that Jake Paul could beat him up. So I don't know. I mean, I watched like a press conference after the UFC fight the other day where they were asking all these top fighters what they thought of Jake Paul, and they were all laughing at him. I mean, probably should go without saying, but it's just interesting, like where he's going to take it from here, because I mean, clearly he's taking this shit really fucking serious, and it's you know, it's very interesting watching it play out in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, I mean, with both of us being YouTubers, it's kind of like one of our own is like...
I mean, if we were 25 or some shit right now...
I know, right? Yeah, I know, right? I might get in the ring at 25. Well, a lot of people thought it was fake.
I saw that, yeah.
What did you think?
I mean, honestly, it seemed like a pretty legit, respectable punch, you know? Like, he punched him in the fucking head and he fell down hard on the ground. I mean, it seemed like that would be sort of hard to fake. And I, like, you know, when I think about Ben Askren, I don't think of him as somebody who would be so lacking in integrity that he would do such a thing. You know, it's like, it feels like the risk of them planning out the results of this fight and having anyone potentially know about the fact that they were planning that, I don't know, it doesn't seem super likely to me that they would have faked it. But I mean, it's certainly possible. But when I watched the fight, I didn't really feel like it was fake.
Well, Ben Askren was not exactly in tip-top shape.
Exactly.
If you saw the weigh-in, he had like a muffin top. You know?
Like, he was a boss UFC fighter, and then he got, I think, back surgery and, like, you know, basically completely fell off of the whole scene of fighting and everything. And then they're like, hey, here, do you want to make $1 million and you got to just fight this YouTube kid? I mean, like, if it was me and I was him, I would think that he would take it super serious. But, I mean, I guess it's not that shocking that he sort of said, all right, I'll take the fight, and then maybe not do the 4-month training camp.
I mean, because I'm not very familiar with Ben. I mean, was he a top guy?
I think he was. It's been a while. I kind of like forget what his role in the UFC was, but I remember thinking he was pretty badass. And when all these UFC guys talk about him, like in this press conference I was talking about just watching, it was very much like everyone speaks glowingly of like the kind of fighter that he was during his time in the UFC. So, I mean, even after that, after seeing Jake Paul knock him out, I mean, all of these guys, his peers, are looking at him like he's a fucking G. So, I mean, I guess that says something, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw the punch. It looked... it could go either way. And then he looked super happy as he was leaving.
Right, yeah.
Did he really get $1 million?
I mean, from the numbers I've heard being thrown around, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Somewhere in that ballpark would be what I would think someone like him would get headlining a fight like that.
But he's not the draw. Jake Paul was the draw.
Yeah, but Jake Paul needs to fight somebody with some legitimacy. And I feel like, you know, by sort of offering yourself up there, like I would think, you know, he has to get $500,000.
I don't know.
The way I think of it.
I don't know.
Maybe not. But.
I don't know. But, you know, just the other day, Jake called out Dana White. He called him a douche and talked about how he doesn't pay his fighters, saying how he got more than, like, all the top UFC fighters.
That's a very different business model, but yeah.
This is true. Well, I don't know, though. I mean, it's pay-per-view. Pay-per-view is pay-per-view.
Right. But, I mean, the top UFC stars, like, do get something more comparable to, like, what Jake Paul is able to get. I mean, Jake Paul is the sole reason that fight got all those pay-per-views. You know, it's like when you look at the way that they negotiate the UFC contracts with like huge stars like George St. Pierre during his time or Conor or whatever, you see them like becoming much, much more giving to the fighters once a fighter becomes a real draw, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, clearly they take a lot more damage in the UFC against another top guy.
It's true.
I mean, these guys are usually limping out the ring. Usually have to have various surgeries after they're done. So, I mean, they deserve that money.
The UFC ceases to have a business model if they paid every fighter $1 million, you know, or whatever. Like anything even close to that. I mean, a lot of those fighters are getting like $20K or some shit.
Yeah, I mean, the lower end guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I remember, what was it, Michael Jai White. I asked him why he never went to the UFC, and he goes, man, most of those guys are broke.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but most of them. And it seems like, for example, I interviewed Tito Ortiz, and yeah, he was one of the top guys, and he made millions, but he started breaking down his surgeries. And it was like back surgery here, arm surgery here, slip disc here, another back surgery here. And it's just like, yo, like you really just sacrifice your entire body in order to do this.
But the UFC is smart because they bought up all their competition over the years. So it's like a very different effect. Or if you want to fight MMA, then you kind of have to do the UFC thing. You could do Bellator, but that shit's pretty tiny in comparison. Whereas in boxing, there's all these competing leagues. You can go do your own event and stuff. So that completely like elevates the amount that fighters get paid. Whereas with the UFC, it's like you really don't have any other options. So they can afford to force lower level fighters to like slowly, barely make enough to get by over the years, just hoping to get to that point of getting $1 million for a fight, you know?
Yeah. You know, shout out to everyone who really does this because it's a thankless job. And a very few amount of people actually get to the point where they actually are rich.
Right.
And usually that comes at a very high cost to their bodies. Well, on the same bill was Bosco 100 and Gonzo.
Which I did not see, but I heard it was a draw.
Yeah, it was a draw overall.
Okay.
And I actually had Bosco here the other day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're actually going to start running the clips tomorrow. And, I mean, apparently the two of them were like Twitter beefing with each other for a while. And then they finally just got in the ring. And I asked him why they're wearing headgear. And he said because the weight difference was so big.
Oh, that makes sense.
So it was so big that they didn't want to actually sanction it at all.
Okay.
Then I guess Snoop came in and said, okay, well, we got to work something out. And then the headgear was sort of the compromise.
That's funny that Snoop could make that call. That's dope.
Do you think there'll be more celebrity boxing now that you're starting to see this type of thing?
I think, yeah, more and more people are starting to see the value in it. And the same way that you see, you know, all these rappers doing OnlyFans things and all these rappers moving to different states because they don't want to pay the taxes in LA and stuff. I feel like you're going to see a lot more rappers really seeing the value in it. Like, to me, this is all, like, if that Soulja Boy and Chris Brown fight had happened all those years ago,
right,
that would have been the thing that would have, like, basically the YouTubers and the TikTokers took this space because they had less to lose. If you had seen, like, big names like Soulja Boy and Chris Brown sort of, like, usher this new era in years ago, I think you would be looking at it right now, like, as a way, way bigger thing. But yeah, I think definitely. Because that Jake Paul fight, like, you're telling me, like, you saw the level of excitement there was for, like, Gucci versus Jeezy, right?
Right.
You put them motherfuckers in a boxing ring? Oh, I'm watching.
Right now?
You know?
Yeah. Well, I never thought that, Chris Brown and Soulja Boy was going to happen.
Yeah, but you
I
that
just
shimmer
knew,
of hope, you know?
I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
Because, well, number one, Soulja Boy would have done it for a big enough check.
Right.
But Chris Brown had a certified, consistent and long musical career. Not to say that Soulja Boy didn't as well, but not on the level of a Chris Brown.
No.
Chris Brown continued to just, every album would do gold, platinum, big songs all throughout. Soulja Boy kind of has his ups and downs, and he's back up right now, and I'm super happy for him. But at the time, I mean, Chris Brown was still one of the top, if not the top R&B guys of the era. So why would he get into a ring and potentially get knocked out?
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. I just don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge risk to take as a celebrity to get in there and just go for it. Like, if you really have something to lose, and that's what And that's why people are paying to watch Jake Paul fight, is because we all know that he's got something to lose. He's got a lot on the line here, and it's going to be an interesting conclusion. But yeah, I mean, like if some genius came along, like they do all these Triller fights and stuff. Triller's tapped in the hip hop world. You'd think that if there were enough potential fights to be made, then you would see it happening. No sign yet, but
Well, Lamar Odom and Aaron Carter. Now, I actually interviewed Lamar recently, and this clip isn't out yet, but at the end of the interview, I showed him a video of Aaron Carter boxing naked, like hitting like the heavy bag.
That you saw on my Twitter.
That I saw on your Twitter.
That he then asked me to delete. I guess that wasn't supposed to be around. I think that was OnlyFans exclusive or something.
Is that what that was?
I think that was the plan.
I mean...
I lost like 1,000 followers on Twitter, for the record, when I posted that clip.
Okay.
Yeah. You can all come back now.
Okay, you can come back. It's gone now. Right, because Aaron Carter is literally butt naked.
Boxing.
Boxing.
Up a storm.
Something that you don't expect to see that day.
Dick waving. Yeah.
Right.
Blew my mind.
Right. And as I'm interviewing Lamar, and I'm telling him about it, he goes, oh, okay, so he's naked, whatever. And then I actually showed him the video, I think, off of your Twitter. And he was like, he lost it. He's like, oh, hell no. I'm beating his ass now. Like, he finally disrespectful. He's like, yeah, because, in my hood, like, dudes would be like, yeah, I'm going to kiss you like a bitch or something. He's like, he looked at that as like the equivalent. So you might actually get an actual fight now. Do you at all understand why they paired up these two?
I honestly did not look into that. But, I mean, you're looking at two people who I think it might make sense for them in their career. Like, Aaron Carter, like, getting beat up for money just probably makes sense. He probably just needs the money, and he's willing to possibly take a L, almost certainly take a L. And Lamar Odom, I guess, I don't know to the extent to which he might need the money, but it doesn't feel like he's taking almost any risk here.
Right.
Since he's the size of a fucking house compared to Aaron Carter. I don't know.
I mean, it's like a 1.5 difference?
Right.
Plus, like, the wingspan on Lamar is just crazy.
And when you think about the UFC, like, the UFC has always avoided these kind of fights where, sometimes there'll be a celebrity and they'll give a CM Punk a chance, or they'll even find like a good fight for a Brock Lesnar because they know how big the business opportunity is putting a celebrity in the ring against a fighter or whatever. But the UFC, like, if you watch the early days of the UFC, you see so many more blowout fights where you'll just have somebody just knock the other person out in 30 seconds. And you don't see that as much because they try to come up with really well-balanced fights. But the thing about the really well-balanced fights is that they're not as spectacular. You're not going to see somebody get knocked out in 20 seconds if these guys are neck and neck skill-wise. Now you have all these other promoters who don't, like, Dana White this whole time has been trying to build a real business, a real sport. Now you have all these promoters who are just like, fuck it, we're going to make this 6'10" fucking pro basketball player beat up a little guy. No offense to Aaron.
Pop star.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, hey.
I don't understand why they would match up these two. It's definitely going to be entertaining, though. Everyone's going to watch.
Oh, I'm here for it, 100%, yeah.
Well, and then there's Mayweather fighting Logan Paul on June 5th. Do you think this is actually going to happen?
I think at this point, yes, because there was a moment there where it wasn't going to happen, or the fight date got changed or some shit like that, and it seemed like Logan was pretty much down to do whatever to make it happen. But this is going to be a really interesting fight because obviously, like, Floyd is just a god of boxing, but Logan is really big compared to him. So that is, to me, is going to be pretty interesting. I mean, I still obviously think Floyd's going to take it down, but just the size difference will make that one interesting.
Right, because, I mean, Logan could somewhat manhandle him in the ring. He could push him around. He is quite a bit bigger.
Right.
He's more muscular. Probably not as good a shape, but he's still in shape.
And he's going to go hard, whereas Floyd, is Floyd going to see this as a life or death thing where
Floyd's
he needs to
hard.
train his ass off?
Floyd is going to train his ass off. From what I understand, from everyone I've talked to, like, Floyd takes all his fights seriously. When he fought Conor McGregor, like, he was not just looking at it as a gimme. Like, he trained like he usually trains, and he won the way he usually wins.
Right.
So he's going to really train because God knows Mayweather does not want that asterisk by his name. Like,
But Ben Askren probably didn't want the asterisks either. Those are too hard words to say in the same sentence. But, like he probably didn't want that either. But, Floyd, Ben Askren seemed like he was pretty happy to be done fighting for the rest of his life, whereas Floyd does have this record to uphold. So, yeah.
He does. Well, I'm looking forward to it. We're all going to watch it is the thing.
Yeah.
We're all going to watch it. As much shit as we're talking, it's like we're all going to tune in.
I'm all for more public freak shows so that we have shit to talk about on the internet. Because, sometimes when you, report on the news, people don't know what it's like to, wake up in the morning and try to find news to talk about on the podcast, every day. There's a lot of weeks and days where really almost nothing happens. And the pandemic was bad for that as well. I feel like you don't have rappers going to shows together. You don't have, people meeting up as much. So the news cycle has been a little dry for the last year.
Yeah, I agree. Well, then there's the bad news that has happened. Most recently, Shock G, the co-founder of Digital Underground, died at age 57. This one hit me more so than the DMX and Black Rob.
Really?
Because I'm from the Bay.
Right.
And these guys were hometown heroes. I remember when the Do What You Like video dropped. And it was I was in high school, I think. And it was just yo, who are these guys? They're Bay Area guys. This is before Tupac was in the group and everything. And then Humpty Dance came out.
The Humpty Dance was a big part of my childhood.
Right. But by the time the Humpty Dance came out, everyone in the Bay already knew about Digital Underground. It's okay, y'all are getting on it late. We've been on this. And then they dropped classic albums. In fact, Tupac's first hit song, I Get Around, was actually a Digital Underground song.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
He asked for that song for his second album. Because think about it. It's Tupac, Shock G, and Money B.
Right.
It's really Digital Underground's main two rappers on it.
I was talking about that song the other day because I was saying that I always loved the lyric, what's he say? The weekends was made for Michelob.
It's a Friday, my day,
right.
So just let me kick it.
But I remember listening to that lyric when I was a kid, and I did not know that Michelob was a brand of beer, which when I said this on the podcast the other day, I realized that my co-host also did not know that. That always just stood out to me as a fairly beautiful lyric. I know it wasn't even his lyric, right? It was the other guy on the song.
It was Money B, yeah.
Right, but that's my main memories of learning about Digital Underground when I was a kid and shit was that song, that Tupac song, and then the Humpty Dance, and sort of having because to me it was unthinkable that the guy from the Humpty Dance had songs with Tupac. I was young kid. It's hard to bridge those worlds.
Yeah, you got to understand. People look at Tupac and say, "Oh yeah, Tupac's one of the greatest ever. He would have made it regardless." But what you have to understand is that Tupac's first album didn't really do anything. It didn't really have, the first song, Trap, didn't do nothing. When My Homies Called, didn't do nothing. Brenda's Got a Baby did a little something, right. But it was more of a kind of an underground kind of song. And then his second album came out, and I Get Around was the first hit song that Tupac had. That was the song that got radio play and was played in the clubs and everything else like that. You could really say if it wasn't for that song, Tupac may have just, drifted off and his career would have just ended, or he just would have been an underground rapper.
Right.
You don't know. You could say, oh, he would have made it regardless, but you don't know.
Right.
If you don't get that hit over the top that everyone starts to focus on you after that, it doesn't matter how good the music is. If no one's paying attention, you're just an underground rapper. And yeah, man, we had tried for years to try to get a Shock G interview.
Oh, really? He wasn't interested, or?
I think he may have responded once and said, oh, yeah, hit me later in the year or something. We always try to say, oh, like a lot of people can, whenever someone passed away, they're like, oh, yeah, you always say you had an interview planned with them. We didn't have an interview planned with them. I've been trying to get one. And, man, such a loss, 57 years old.
That's a shame.
And this really happened, in threes. It was Digital Underground, Shock G died, and then right before that, Black Rob dies at 51, and then right before that, DMX dies at 50. I'm 47. That shit kind of freaked me out a little bit. When you saw all three of those deaths happen, what did you think?
I guess I really hadn't been aware of what the fuck Black Rob had been up to for many, many years, I remember, DMX listened to him a shitload when I was like 14, 98, 99, that area. You know, we listened to DMX a lot. Black Rob obviously had a couple songs that we were going crazy for at that time. I don't know. I mean, there is an extent to which with DMX that it seemed like, no disrespect, he had been living so crazy for so long that you were kind of almost surprised. Like to me, when I think about my days partying, if I had kept doing that until I was 50 years old, like, I don't know. It just seems really hard to like do serious drugs and keep going as a grown ass man. And I don't know, like DMX being able to live like he was living for all those years, if anything, you know, I think he got a lot of fucking years in there. And I saw a clip of Irv Gotti saying that, or I didn't actually even see the clip. I saw the headline, but he's saying that there was fentanyl in the drugs.
Yeah. That was, it had been posted and then it got taken down.
Oh, so we don't know if that's true?
Well, it was posted.
Okay.
Now, whether it's true or not, who knows? How much does Irv Gotti know about the situation?
Yeah.
I mean, probably a lot.
Mm.
I mean, at one point, DMX, Ja Rule, and Jay-Z were supposed to have a group called Murder Inc.
Remember, yeah.
You know, Irv Gotti was a very central person at Def Jam during DMX's heyday.
Mm.
So obviously he's very much in the mix.
Yeah.
I was talking very closely with DMX's right-hand man, like literally every day.
Mm.
And we don't quite know what happened that led up to the heart attack. We don't know, you know, from what I understand, he was upstairs. A bunch of his family were downstairs. They heard a loud bang. He went upstairs and he was unconscious. He had a heart attack, and it was a while. I think it was like 30 minutes before they were able to get him revived somewhat. And then he was essentially brain dead at that point.
Yeah.
And DMX had underlying conditions. And when he got to the hospital, he tested positive for COVID.
Mm.
People were trying to say he had taken the vaccine recently. I hadn't heard that. But he did test positive for COVID, which made it difficult for family members to even see him in the hospital room because of, you know, the COVID regulations at a hospital.
Right.
And 50 years of hard living.
Man.
Of in and out of rehab, but trying to make it work. And from what I heard, the reason why he had gained so much weight at the end is because he had gotten clean around 6 months ago.
Right.
Whether or not he had a relapse at the end, I don't know.
Yeah, because I remember he was clean for a while because there's a guy who does PR for him or whatever, and he was telling me that he was trying to line up the interview and everything, and I'd been kind of overwhelmed when I heard that because I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, it's a lot of pressure to think of what you're going to talk to DMX about, you know? And but then I think he told me like a week later he relapsed, like, you know, not sure it's going to happen right now. And so, I was kind of getting a little bit of updates on his condition because at one point they were trying to place him for an interview. But, that's terrible, man.
Sad news. They just had the memorial and the funeral. Swizz Beatz talked about how, literally on stage, he said the importance of having a will.
Mm. Did he not have one?
Kind of sounds like it. Kind of sounds like it. DMX died with 17 children. Wow. I'd also heard a rumor that like there was like 10 other women that are saying that DMX might be the father of their kids as well. I don't know whether that part is true or not, but this is kind of what's circulating on the internet.
Wow.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a handful of those might actually be his kids, just by the number of kids that he has.
That's crazy because then it doesn't matter how much money he had in the bank. If it's getting split 30 ways, then it ain't much, you know?
Right. It's basically, yeah, split 30 ways. So, yeah, Well, listen, he lived a hell of a life.
He did.
We would be lucky to live a life that DMX lived to 50 years old.
The one thing that I was really taken aback by, I was listening to an interview with on the New York Times music podcast with the guy who, I forget his name, but he wrote his biography. And the way he talked about DMX's friends really stood out to me because if you were going to be DMX's friend, you just really had to be along for the fucking ride.
Right.
And you had to really love that dude because, you know, we all like live our lives trying to accommodate other people in our lives, make them feel comfortable and shit. I mean, in the sounds of it, there was not a lot of that from DMX. Like you had to love him and believe in him enough to really be on board for everything. And that's just, I don't know, it just stands out to me a lot as like just what kind of person he was that all these people didn't leave his side all those years, you know?
Well, DMX is still DMX. And he's still, at one point, an A-level celebrity. And still, wherever he went, he was still DMX. And at the end of the day, you see how it is. Not to say to take anything away from these friends around him, but you can make a good income just being around DMX.
That's fair. And one thing though that they said too is that I found really interesting was like with DMX, he might end up just talking to a homeless guy outside the Starbucks for an hour and a half.
Right.
And that gets added to the schedule for the day. Like that's just like if he wants to do it, it's happening. And everything else for the day has to get moved around because you're just dealing with this personality that can't really be held back, and you're just going to let him do what he wants to do. And a lot of times he wanted to sort of, hold court with other people who had been through a lot, like himself. And
that's that.
And the other thing the dude said was that he wanted to go talk to DMX's mom, and he said she was not hard to find. Like he pulled up to the neighborhood, and she was just around. Like it was she was just on the block, I guess.
Well, listen, we actually had an interview planned with DMX.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we were trying to schedule it near the end. Swizz Beatz actually even got involved at one point to help us out. Shout out to Swizz because it was something he didn't have to do. He didn't have anything to gain from the interview happening or not. But me and him go back, and he actually went out of his way to make sure. And it was actually in the planning stages. It had been in the planning stages, but it got off track because it's DMX.
Right.
But Swizz actually managed to get it back on track again. And it was literally days apart. Like it was like I found out it was back on track like on a Wednesday, and then on Friday, the heart attack happened. So it was just kind of devastating news overall. But in the process of us preparing for this interview, I was doing all the research around it. And his mother was massively abusive.
Yeah.
DMX's mom, at 6 years old, there was a story where he had opened up her wallet to to take a piece of, she took like a piece of paper out of her wallet and kind of scribbled on it or something, some little paper. And it was like, it was basically something to do with her job. And when she woke up the next morning and saw he did that, she beat him with a broom handle and knocked like 2 or 3 of his teeth out. As a 6-year-old. And once you lose teeth, it kind of really affects your health in general. If you're not, because you're not putting new teeth in at 6, those are still your baby teeth. And she was so abusive at home is that he just became homeless at one point and started just sleeping with dogs. And that's where the whole pit bull dog thing kind of came around because he lived in such an abusive household. So,
this really hit the nail on the head for me. They said, if you look at a Jay-Z or a Kendrick, they're the person telling you about what's going on in the streets. They're telling you about what's going on in the neighborhood. They're telling you about life. But there's a level of distance, like Jay-Z was telling you that he was a drug dealer, but he's also clearly observing a lot of what's going on around him in his lyrics. Like DMX is was really a character in the movie. Like he was in it. Like he was him. A lot of movies have a character like him, like a guy who acts off emotion and is kind of out of control. And I mean, he just was such a unique personality in that regard. It's hard to be that person and have a long life,
Yeah. Rest in peace, DMX.
Facts.
One of the greatest ever. In a weird turn of events, Cam Coldheart just died at age 31.
Right.
He was the one that became known for getting beat up by the baby at the Louis Vuitton store.
Which was about the biggest thing on the internet for that weekend. That was all everybody was talking about.
It was. He had actually reached out to us a couple of times to do an interview, and I'm like, I don't know what to do an interview about. It's really because he started that fight. Did you see the whole chain of events with that?
Yeah, I think I did a video about it at the time, so I spent a bunch of time looking into it and reporting on it a little bit. Yeah,
right.
It was crazy.
So the baby was minding his business at the Louis Vuitton store, and then this dude started to kind of troll him, and then in the process got beat up probably by the baby's security. And that became his claim to fame, essentially. But I guess he was a rapper as well.
Yeah, because I remember at that time I was sort of fascinated with watching his story because he was just doing so much rationalizing of why he just got his ass beat and how actually he wasn't a pussy, and respect to him because he's gone apparently, but yeah, there was definitely an extent to which I was just like really fascinated by this guy. Like, what the fuck is he gonna say next in terms of like trying to make himself seem like the good guy in this situation? We still don't know how he died, right?
They're saying it's a drug overdose. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Not sure, but that was the word that I kind of heard.
Okay.
Was that it was a drug overdose? Because at 31, I mean, I didn't hear it was a shooting or anything else like that. I didn't hear it was suicide.
Because that's what I was thinking is that if he got shot, every conspiracy-minded person is going to be making it out like, oh, the baby had a hit on him, etc. So
why? I mean, the baby walked away with it, the winner.
Like, does he care?
Yeah, he don't care about no damn Cam Coldheart at the time, but I think it really says something about the drugs these days. It just seems to me, now I'm not a drug guy.
Right.
I've said this. I'm a weed guy. I've tried acid. I've tried ecstasy. I've done mushrooms, handful of times, but I'm really not the drug guy. I'm not the pill guy. Never tried cocaine, never tried heroin, never popped pills. But it appears to me that the drugs these days are just a lot more deadly than they were back in the day. I mean, do you get that impression?
Yeah, it's just like, when I was a kid, it was like, or not when I was a kid, because I didn't even really know about pills and shit until I was like well into my 20s, but you never heard about fake pills back then. And now it's like, when you hear about a rapper dying from taking some pills, it's like 90% chance that it's a fentanyl thing. Because I've heard people talk about taking 30 Xanax in a night. It's really hard to kill yourself by popping pills. Now, I'm not saying that for anybody's attempt fate or anything, but it is kind of tough. Like, but when you take this fentanyl and it's literally 100 times more powerful than what you probably think is in this drug, I mean, it's actually really crazy that if that's how DMX passed, then that means DMX passed because of the same shit as Lil Peep, because of the same shit as Mac Miller, because of the same shit as a bunch of people, and I mean, very different generations, but yeah, I mean, when you hear about people dying from drugs these days, it's massively overweighted towards fentanyl stuff.
Right, and fentanyl is essentially a drug that they used to cut other drugs with to make them more potent.
Yeah, and I think that like when they're pressing fake pills, because like obviously the goal isn't to kill the person that you're selling the drugs to. I think the goal would be to sell them a pill that has, whatever in it, and it's a small percentage fentanyl, because the fentanyl will get you super fucked up. The problem is that it's like if you take 2 or 3 times the amount that you thought you were taking, and these pills that they make when they're just pressing their own pills and shit, they're super inconsistent in terms of like what's in each individual pill. So you could very easily have a pill that's supposed to have an amount that you'd be okay with, and then it ends up being 10 times as much, and boom, you're dead. And it's over and over and over.
Well, yeah, I mean, Lil Peep died of a mix of fentanyl and Xanax. Mac Miller died of cocaine, fentanyl, and alcohol. Prince died of fentanyl. Let's not forget about that. I don't think Juice WRLD died of fentanyl. I think it was other pills. Real perks. But yeah, I mean, essentially, I've watched, documentaries about fentanyl on 60 Minutes. It's essentially, it'll bring a drug addict to like the edge of death, which is why so many people even want it. It's like the ultimate high, but it's likely to kill you as well. Right. So it's kind of crazy for a 31-year-old who looked relatively healthy to just up and die. How old was Mac Miller? He was like, 30 maybe?
Probably about 30, maybe a little younger or a little older, but yeah, I mean, that's another one that, yeah.
Mac Miller was 26.
26, Jesus Christ.
Lil Peep was 21.
21.
Now, Peep you were actually close to. Yeah, there's a video of him like kissing you in the head and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which one hit you the most? Was it Peep? Or Juice WRLD?
It's hard to say though, because like I felt like the Peep one hit me so hard because that was the first rapper I was real close to that died, like a young rapper. But then when X died, it was like I knew X a lot better than I knew Peep, So that one really fucked me up. And then, by the time you get to Juice WRLD, it's like, I don't know. There's a level of like fatigue that sets in when you're just losing so many of these young rappers that it's hard to feel it the same way that you feel the first one. At this point, it's like I feel very, very calloused to the whole thing because it just feels so consistent. And I mean, there's a lot more rappers that you could throw on there too. But yeah, I mean, Peep, Juice, and X were all like super hard to take because, I mean, they're all super different, but they were all like really, really sweet, just incredibly talented people. And yeah, I mean, all those, you know, I was already long done doing drugs, but by the time I saw Juice pass and stuff, but the Peep thing really was a big part of why I stopped doing any drugs and stuff.
Really? So once Lil Peep died, you stopped completely. So what were you taking before?
I used to I had a phase there in the early days of No Jumper where like on the weekends I would go out, drink, always find Coke, and then usually find Xanax and just be doing all those back and forth, up and down. And it was a fucking nightmare when I look back on it. And I was just getting way too, you know, it was weird because it was like I would do that Friday and Saturday, feel like shit Sunday, feel all right by Monday, be able to get into the office and work and like, you know, get stuff done through Thursday, Friday you start getting fucked up again. And it's like, you know, I was early 30s at this point. So I started to really feel it. And all of a sudden it's like, I remember me and my girl went to Rolling Loud in California, like the LA area. I forget what year this would have been, but we got fucked up on all those drugs. And yeah, it was like, it took me all day Sunday and basically all day Monday to feel better after that. And that was like, this is right around the time that Pete passed. And after that, I was just like, you know, 2-day hangover, I can't, you know, it just get to the point where it just is taking so much out of your week to be getting fucked up for a day or two that it's just like, how could I continue to do this to myself?
Yeah, I felt that way about ecstasy. The couple of times I took ecstasy, the next day you're so fucked up that I'm just like, I don't have this type of time in my life to just completely lose a day of just recovery.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just recovery.
Yeah.
You're not really accomplishing anything.
A couple of years ago, I was doing a vlog in the hood and somebody was trying to get me to do coke with them. Like while we're doing the vlog, they're like, let's do some coke. And it's like, in my head, it's like, I could do coke with you and I'm going to feel really good for, I don't know, half hour, an hour. Realistically, we're probably going to keep doing it. So probably the whole entire rest of the time that we hang out. But I mean, then I'm going to feel like shit afterwards. I'm going to feel like shit for the rest of the night. And I'm going to feel like shit the next morning. Why not just not do the coke?
Right.
And feel fine now, go to bed, feel fine, wake up in the morning, feel fine. It's just like a way better, safer bet. Because what you're really doing is you're borrowing against your future energy. When you do drugs, you know, like a Friday night doing coke, yes, you'll have a blast, but then you're paying for it the next day.
Right.
And it's like, for me, I've gotten to the point where it's like, I would rather have a steady, cool Friday night and a steady, cool Saturday morning. I mean, I stopped doing that shit before I had kids, but especially now, it's like when I see dudes drinking crazy ass amounts of lean and shit, and I know that they got kids at home and they're gonna like, what are you doing? You're just like laying in bed, sleeping till noon with the kids all around you, screaming, freaking out. It's kind of hard for me to imagine balancing the drug addiction and the kid.
Well, Derek Chauvin got convicted of murder. Did that surprise you, or did you think he was going to get off?
I mean, it didn't surprise me because I felt like everybody in the country and the world had the same reaction when we saw the tape.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I understand they got to go to court and they got to do everything they can to prove that maybe what you saw on the tape wasn't really what happened. But yeah, I mean, I would have really felt for America if they found that dude innocent, because that was just, I mean, what more could you have done to have convinced the world that you didn't give a fuck about this guy's life, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you think that, but then you think about how many cops got off with pretty much the same thing. Pretty much. You know, the guy who got strangled, what was his name?
Eric Garner,
exactly. I mean, you got the whole thing on tape. You know, they just sat there and strangled him until he died, and the cop didn't even get charged, I don't think. There wasn't even a trial. You know, they said that it was okay based on what the police department is doing. And, you know, I think the best part about that trial was after he was found guilty, Boosie tweeted, he said he's lucky he's not going to Louisiana with a bunch of eggplants, eggplant emojis. He said, And there was like a hashtag, boss calls would have been made. So apparently Boosie knows some booty warriors.
Booty goons, yeah.
Some booty goons in the Louisiana.
Goons. Okay.
I guess he got them on speed dial. You call in and make a booty goon call.
I would love for that audio to leak of Boosie ordering a sexual assault over the phone to prison. Put that as the intro to his next project.
Well, I think they should offer Derek, when he actually gets sentenced in June, they should offer him like a choice. Like you could either do the time or you could do half the time and have to be in general population. Take your choice.
Man.
Because in general population, I don't even think the Aryans would have probably even protect him.
You don't think? I feel like he'd be like a mascot for them. The white supremacists, I feel.
Yeah, except that they're so outnumbered.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing.
But is there any chance of him being in general population with people? No.
None
right?
whatsoever.
Yeah, he's going to be in a fucking room for his whole life.
But then again, I mean, you still hear these stories. Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
Remember? The one who ate all the kids? He got put in general population and got killed the same day.
Same day. Holy shit.
Same day, yeah. They found his head in a toilet bowl with like a broomstick shoved up his ass. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You throw certain people in Gen Pop, because some people don't even care. Like, I'm already doing life.
Yeah.
How much worse can it be? I get to at least kill this guy.
Yeah. You kill that guy, you're a hero.
You're a hero.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Well, then, the same day that Derek Chauvin was found guilty, 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant got killed by the police. Did you watch that video?
I did.
I've had a lot of really serious debates with people about this. What's your take on this?
That video is like the opposite of the George Floyd video, because it's a situation where there's a lot of ambiguity and there's a lot of question of like, what exactly are police trained to do? What do you do when you pull up and you see somebody with a knife about to stab somebody else? Is it okay for you to just shoot them dead? I mean, me not knowing that much about how cops are supposed to act, I saw that video and I was like, I feel for the police officer in this situation. I feel for the girl who got killed as well, but I feel for the police officer who had to make that decision in that moment, because that's an incredibly hard decision to make. And I feel like, nobody likes to say this, but it goes unsaid that policing is probably like an incredibly hard job, and that situations like that are the ultimate hard decision to make. And, I wouldn't even be able to put it close to the Derek Chauvin issue,
Yeah, I mean, because the police pulled up and this girl had a knife and was trying to stab two different girls. She attacked one girl who was kind of on the ground and then turned around and started attacking another girl with a knife and actually had the knife up at the point that she got shot. And it was
like when the cops got there, she got more serious about fucking this other girl. She went crazier, and that was what made it even harder for me to really like see the police officer as being at fault. Is it felt like the other girl's death was very imminent if this didn't. I don't know.
It's such a messed up situation because, number one, a 16-year-old girl got shot to death.
Yeah.
And no one wants to see it, regardless of the actions leading up to it. From what I understand, she was a foster child. She was in a foster home. The two other girls, from what I understand, were also like either daughters or foster kids of the same mom. And there's an argument that started over like doing chores. Wow. Something really stupid, like something just dumb, like some kid shit. An argument started over doing chores. I think the other girls came over and some sort of fight, altercation happened. From what I understand, the girl who got killed was the one who made the call.
Wow.
But you show up and you see someone with a knife trying to stab people. Do you say, I'm going to hesitate and potentially let this person stab someone else to death? Or I'm going to try to shoot this person and, stop the situation from happening?
And the question is like, does your police training tell you that if you tase this person, that they might still be able to stab the person a couple more times before is it too dangerous to tase her in this situation where she's standing right next to the victim? Does your training say that this is an appropriate time to shoot the person? Because that's one thing that I've really learned a lot about over the past couple of weeks. So I listened to a podcast or two on this, is that the amount of training that police officers get is like so unbelievably minuscule.
Right.
You would think that they were just, you would think that a police officer in America would have to do, I don't know, let's throw it out there, like 20 hours a year at least of like training.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that. It's like a year, maybe 2 years of like firearm training per year. It's like nothing. It's like less than, like, I know tons of people who go to the gun range a couple times a month just because they have a gun in their home and they want to be able to use it if somebody intrudes in their home.
Yeah.
The idea that these guys drive around with guns on them all day and are in charge of taking care of these situations. And I'm not saying that they're all completely incompetent, but I do think that like just the amount of training is pretty pathetic.
Yeah. And, after it happened, LeBron James did that tweet and showed the cop and said, "You're next, accountability." And then that caused a bit of a backlash. LeBron ended up taking that tweet down. I think Trump said some things about him.
Puts out his bulletin about it since he can't tweet.
He can't tweet. O.J. Simpson spoke about it, and then I think Boosie got mad at O.J. Simpson and the whole nine. It's such an ugly, messy situation that, I remember I showed Bosco the video, and Bosco felt that, that was not a justified shooting. That, you could have done something else. You could have pulled out a taser. You could have potentially, I don't know, rushed in and hit the girl with a baton. I don't know, something to try to break it up or something. But then again, the person has a deadly weapon. And we talked about how in prison, there is essentially signs saying that if you have a knife, that the guy in the guard tower is going to shoot you.
Wow.
That's established. If you have a knife on the prison yard, you're going to get a bullet to the head. So I'm like, well, what's the difference? He goes, well, that's prison. And I'm like, well, what's the difference though? Right? It's a person with a knife trying to stab somebody. Yes, it's not prison, but, but then again, it's a 16-year-old girl on top of it, but then you say, well, the cop may not have known it was a 16-year-old girl because, I'm saying she may not necessarily look 16. Then it's like, okay, and here's the age-old problem of cops taking out black people because they think they look older. And you see what I'm saying? And it's just, it's so ugly and so sad. And it's just, you just don't want to see it. You just wish it never happened. But unfortunately, it did happen. And here we are talking about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's so easy to just sort of not comment on it on social media or whatever, because it's just, like if you are a person who watched that video and your opinion was cop was justified, it's not fun to have that opinion on Twitter because, you're just going to become a target for anybody who feels the other way. And it's just, you're going to turn your life into a living hell if you fucking tweet that out when everybody's going crazy about that. I seen that DJ Envy was under fire because he had basically said that the cop was justified. I think that the one thing that's true, though, is that cops have a really fucking tough job, and there's all this surveillance and body camera footage and everything, and it's like, how many police officers do we have across the United States showing up at people's houses for violent issues and stuff? I don't think that there's going to be any stop to us seeing videos of police officers getting into situations that either are fucked up or seem like they might be fucked up at any time in the near future, because there's just so much policing going on, and now there's so much coverage of it that every mistake gets magnified. Everything that might be a mistake gets magnified, and I don't know. It's a really tough situation. And even when I was just saying I think they need more training and shit, I don't know if that really solves the problem.
Well, I think body cams help.
It definitely helps with accountability.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, think about it. Think about Derek Chauvin with no video footage. It would probably be an open and shut case with no repercussions for
because
Derek.
there was no outrage until the video came out.
Right.
Yeah.
How many cops have just killed people and just walked away from it like nothing happened?
Yeah.
Throughout history.
It's a new day
throughout history. Man. But so the body cams are good. Body cams are good. People with video cameras, that's even better. Security cameras in the stores and everything else like that. Because they had so much footage in that Derek trial that it was like, all right. The prosecutor literally told the jury, believe your own eyes. Yes, you could say, oh, maybe he died from the exhaust pipe.
He was on drugs.
He was on drugs. That's why. But it's like, you look at the video and you're like,
believe your eyes. Yeah.
You know what happened. He got choked. Basically, he had a knee on his neck until he died.
And like the best argument against Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd is like, well, maybe he had a heart attack because of the drugs while he was being held down on the ground under the police officer's knee. And it's like, okay, maybe he did. Like, that doesn't change the fact that he had his fucking knee on his neck like he was trying to kill him for that long, dude.
Yeah. And for everyone that thinks that that's not how he died, do this exercise. Lie down on the ground on your stomach and try to breathe.
Right.
And see how much harder it is to breathe lying down on your stomach than it is in any other position.
Yeah.
In any other position. Not with your knee, you know, with your elbows holding you up, completely flat on the ground. Your lungs, it's hard to actually expand your lungs in that situation. Then imagine a 200-pound guy with a knee on his neck, on your neck. On top of that, and you really start to get the idea about how bad things were.
Yeah.
And apparently, Chauvin did that to like a 17-year-old a couple years ago, which will be a whole new case, I think.
Like he needs another case, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Lil Nas X. You watched the video?
I did.
What'd you think? I never actually watched the whole thing. I just saw a few clips of it, and I just kind of turned it off. But you watched the whole thing?
Yeah, I saw the whole thing.
What'd you think?
I think that the thing that kind of stood out to me was the way that I didn't find the video offensive at all. And the video was like designed basically to troll sort of like the right-wing outrage machine. Mm-hmm. I felt like that video was like made to make Ben Shapiro tweet some salty shit about it, you know, like, because it's just so not offensive to me. The only people who got offended by it are the right-wing type people and then the really hardcore rapper type people who are still kind of homophobic. Those are the only people I saw pissed off about.
And Christians, like hardcore Christians.
Right, yeah. I'll throw them in the right-wing category, even though they're not all right-wing. But, you know, those people are so 100% not Lil Nas X's audience that he can so easily afford to offend them, create this gigantic amount of hype and hysteria about it that didn't have to exist. And I mean, everybody gives him credit for being like this genius marketer. I don't know that all those ideas are like fresh up out of his brain, but whoever helped coordinate that campaign, it strikes me as he's like the gay positive 6ix9ine in a way. You know, like he's just so good at trolling the media, but he's not doing like the gangster tough thing. He's doing the like nice gay troll thing.
Yeah, I mean, John Sally loves that Lil Nas X pissed off the establishment of the Christian world.
Right.
That's what he said. He said he loves it.
Yeah.
He loves it. And clearly, Nas was doing that. He knew exactly what was going to happen.
Right.
You know, and this is something, that a couple of my guests we've gone back and forth with, where we just talked about how Satan isn't real.
Right.
Me and Michael Jai White just talked about how, like, there's really no such thing as Satan. There's no red guy with horns and a tail, with a pitchfork.
Which I felt like when I kind of like realized that I didn't believe in God when I was, 13, I felt like that was a pretty controversial opinion for me to have. That like hell wasn't real, Satan's not real, God's not real. I mean, I had so many people, including my parents in my life, who were really upset with me for being so open about thinking that. And it's like now when there's that Lil Nas X controversy, such a minuscule percentage of people is their argument going to actually be, that like hell is real and you shouldn't be representing hell in your video.
Well, yeah. And he did that because growing up being gay, people around him would tell him that he's going to hell and he's going to meet Satan and whatever if he continues to be gay. So he decided to flip it on him and make this video, which I applaud on an artistic level. Right. And I'm an atheist as well. I also don't believe in God and Satan. But let me tell you, when me and Michael put out this clip and it was titled "Satan Isn't Real," there was so many comments like, "He is real. He's absolutely real." Like, what are you talking about? No, if there's no Satan, then there's no God. And then like, or it's like, well, how do you know what happened? How do you know you don't go to heaven or hell when you die? No one's proven it. And on my site, I would go back and forth with people, right? Because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to debate it, I'll at least profit from it, and I'll just go back and forth with my comments. But people really, really were like, yo, no, Satan is real. He's absolutely real. Oh, the greatest trick Satan ever pulled is to convince the world he isn't real. That's something I kept seeing. But then I had Crunchy Black on. And Crunchy Black talked about how he met Satan.
Wow.
And he talked about how the Satan that Lil Nas X presented is not really how Satan is.
Oh.
And he started going into detail about how he's met him and how he didn't sell his soul and how the conversations he had and everything else like that. And the reason I even brought it up was because who were the first quote unquote satanic rappers? 3 6 Mafia. I mean, they have essentially Satan in their name.
Right.
3 6 is the mark of the beast.
Right.
The devil, right?
They just weren't giving him lap dances.
They just weren't giving him lap dances. But Crunchy was pretty serious.
Yeah. I wonder, like, but I don't think 3 6 ever really, like, felt like they were using the devil shit as anything more than a marketing tactic, don't you think?
Yeah.
I don't think they ever were really doing any occult shit.
Yeah. I mean, I forgot who said this. It might have been DJ Paul or Juicy J back in the day, but when they were coming up with their name, they were like, who's like harder than the hardest gangster? It's like, oh, the devil.
Right.
Okay, yeah, we're going to be harder than, we're going to be the devil. Like, you know, we're going to be harder than anybody.
Yeah.
And, I mean, shit. It worked out for them.
Yeah.
It worked out.
It did.
So, me and Lil Yachty went back and forth on Twitter. I blame you for this.
Fair enough.
I blame you for this because you sent me the clip.
I did.
You say, hey, Vlad, here's a clip of Lil Yachty calling in to No Jumper.
And my co-host, Lil House Phone, says something about Uzi, like, are you cool with Uzi? Or, you know, did you ever squash shit with Uzi? And the way that Yachty responded made it, to me, very clear that either he wasn't cool with Yachty or he wasn't cool with Uzi or he just really, really didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
And I sent it to you. You know, I was like, you know, check this, but let me know if you agree that this seems like he's kind of saying, like,
Okay.
I really don't fuck with Uzi. You know,
Right.
that's what I got from it.
Right. And of course, everyone wants to paint it like I'm just grasping his strings and I'm just making shit up.
Like you're just watching my podcast, just studying for things.
Trying to somehow twist things up. But you sent it to me and really, that was your opinion as well.
Yeah, that's what I saw in the clip. As I was like, because if I'm Yachty in that moment, it's so easy to just say, yeah, Uzi cool.
Next question.
Next question. Yeah, we cool. I ain't seen him in a minute, but he's cool.
He's cool.
Yeah, you know, you could have said that. Instead, he was like, oh, but it's ex-girlfriend drama. Because
Yeah. I mean, at that very moment, he could have handled it any different way. But the way he said it was essentially said that, yeah, y'all don't seem like y'all cool anymore. Yeah. Now, at one point, they had a song together back in the day.
Did they?
Yeah. There's a little Uzi Vert, Lil Yachty song out there. So at one point, it seemed like they were cool.
Okay.
But when I went out, and we posted that, Yachty instantly attacked me.
Right.
Like, fuck you, you fucking fed, you fucking fuck. Like, I felt like I was arguing with a 10-year-old. Like the language that Yachty was using did not sound like an adult. And we went back and forth a few times. He's like, oh, I didn't say it wasn't cool. I just said it wasn't. But, well, no, you're saying you're not cool. Like, and then we went back and forth. And then, someone brought the whole JT thing. They explained it to me because I didn't even know that. Right. I don't follow Yachty like that, right? And so apparently, Lil Yachty used to date JT before she got locked up. And I guess things were kind of left in their relationship. And JT actually said something about that. She actually spoke kind of negatively about Yachty, right? And then later on, Lil Uzi Vert got into a serious relationship with Yachty. Sorry, with Yachty. With JT.
Use that.
With JT.
Right.
Sorry. I mean, we talk about Lil Yachty. This,
right.
We're not too far off. But like, and there was even kind of like a tweet where Lil Yachty made with Uzi. All these littles, man. It's too hard. It's too hard to keep them all worked out. So there was even like a tweet where Uzi made a mention that he's like mad at Yachty or something like that over JT.
Right.
And I actually brought that up in the tweet. And then Yachty was like, oh, look at this. He even tweeted Uzi about it, but Uzi didn't respond.
Right.
So I guess Uzi don't mess with him either. So essentially, me and Yachty aren't cool anymore. Yachty went on Gilly's podcast and called me a bitch and a fed and whatever else. And it's just interesting how a man who cross-dresses and wears, colors his nails, calls me a bitch. It's just kind of
Who's that? Uzi or Yachty?
Yachty.
But he don't cross dress.
Yes, he does.
How?
You never saw the video where he dressed up like Oprah?
Oh, okay.
That's not cross dressing.
I mean, he's dressing up as a character. I don't really, it's a little different than like him going to the club and deciding to wear a miniskirt.
I can see that happening. You can't? I mean, let's put it like this.
Yachty, if anything, is going in a totally the other direction. I feel like he's becoming more of like a hood rapper if you listen to his new tape and stuff.
I didn't listen to the new tape, but he's got a line of, he's putting out fingernail polish.
Really?
Yes.
I don't think these rappers don't seem to think that's some pussy shit anymore.
Really?
I don't know, some percentage of them, but that's a big generational gap because I see when I go to the skate park, I swear to God, I will see so many 14-year-old boys with their nails painted. I see little kids with their nails painted all the time. I feel like the idea that men are not supposed to paint their nails, which I am totally on board with. For me personally, I'll never do it, and I don't really. I would feel a little odd about seeing my son doing that if I had a son. But I feel like that's a big generational divide right now because I see so many young boys doing it.
Well, because they're seeing people like Lil Yachty do it.
That helps, yeah.
It's not just coming out of nowhere. They're seeing the Lil Yachty's of the world. Because here's the thing, right? If Lil Yachty came out of the closet, would anyone really be surprised?
I would be surprised.
You'd be surprised?
I'm surprised that you think that Lil Yachty has like gay tendencies. Because every time I ever seen Yachty, he's been with a bad bitch for the most part, or like a pizza. He's just like, I've seen him with hella fly girls throughout my time. And yeah, I never got any sort of gay energy from him.
I mean, I've interviewed him once, but I mean, the guy who put two guys kissing on his debut album, cross dresses and paints his nails.
Cross dresses.
I'm just saying, it wouldn't be a surprise. It wouldn't be a surprise. If it was announced that him and Lil Nas X were dating, wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
I would be surprised.
Nah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Personally, I would be a little
Come
surprised.
On out.
Yeah.
Come on out.
You throw him on the lie detector test when you have him in here next. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but shout out to Boat. He got a whole new tape out with all the Detroit and Flint rappers. And if anything, I think Yachty's probably got more. I don't know. I could see Yachty buying a brick at some point in the next year or two.
Buying a brick?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
He's just hanging out with all these fucking dirty ass Flint. I'm not going to say dirty, but grimy ass Detroit rappers and shit. I don't know. I think I could see them putting some pounds on the fucking Lil Boat tour bus or something on the next tour. I think he's going in a different direction.
All right. Well, listen, shout out to Lil Yachty. If you ever want to have a conversation with me, we could have it off the internet. This whole public back and forth thing is pretty silly, if you ask me. And the funny part about this is that, Yachty could reach me pretty easily. In fact, you could just DM me on Twitter. Like, I have an open Twitter DM on DJ Vlad where you could just anyone could DM me. And I've interviewed him before. We've had a relationship, of some sort. We've DM'd each other over the years. I was actually one of the few kind of older dudes that was standing up for him when everyone else was bashing him. If he felt that the article we put up about the Lil Uzi Vert was not accurate, all he would have to do is just DM me and say, hey, that's not really the case. Can you either take that down or change the title? And I would have obliged. But when you start publicly, talking shit about me like a child, it's like, all right, well then now we're going to turn this into the circus. You know what I mean? We could all do this. Like at the end of the day, it's like, all right, we'll all join into this hoopla if that's what you want. And I think that's what a lot of people just don't realize. It's like, you will get a lot farther talking to someone like an adult than lashing out like a child. But I think with people like Yachty, who kind of got put on as teenagers, I feel like a lot of times they get stuck. Most artists, when I look at them and see the way they act, you could usually tell what age they got put on.
That's interesting.
No, really.
Yeah,
look at Jay-Z. Jay-Z didn't get put on until his 30s. And look at the way he's been acting all these years. You look at a lot of these younger dudes who get on at 16, 17, 18, they will get stuck in that age because them acting at that age is what got them their initial success. So they start to think like, okay, I got to keep doing this to keep renewing the success, as opposed to growing and maturing and potentially losing my audience in the way. Like, you know, a lot of guys, I mean, it's hard, I think, to go from a teenage entertainer to an adult entertainer. Most people get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, as hot as Lil Pump was a few years ago, I'm not saying he's not a viable artist anymore, but he's not at that level anymore. Because I think a lot of his audience just kind of grew up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely noticed that effect. You know, it's like people always act like, oh, it's so easy to blow up as a young kid rapper. There's some truth to that. Like if you're a young kid with crazy hair and face tattoos and whatever, you know, it might be easy for you to have that moment where everybody's paying attention to you. But then to go through that transition of being like a hot 16-year-old rapper to transition into a hot 21-year-old rapper, I mean, that's a big old feat right there. And,
right.
You know, but like the people that we've seen do a good, not that the age difference was that early, but like somebody like Uzi is somebody who came out and was like a little, I mean, but he looks like he's going to be the same age forever. So I don't know if like, I don't think Uzi reads as an older, like when Uzi's 30, I don't think people are going to be looking at him thinking he's 30. Like thinking about him like he's 30, you know?
Uzi's also an exceptional talent.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that part.
Yeah.
Like what Uzi puts together, the way he harmonizes in the songs he does, you can't just throw him in the boat of, you know, all these other mumble rappers or however you want to say it. Like he's on a different level from everyone else. So if you don't have that, you know, it's going to be a harder hill to climb.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think of Kid Cudi wearing the dress?
I mean, it's not for me.
Yo, we had TK Kirkland on.
Oh, boy.
And TK had the funniest, like, I've interviewed TK a lot. This might be the funniest TK clip that I've ever, like, I had to show it to other people. It was that funny.
Really?
He's like, because I'm explaining to him, and I'm like, yeah. And, you know, he's like, he didn't like the dress and everything else like that. And then I told him that Virgil designed the dress. He's like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me the two dudes are sitting on a couch making dresses for each other? Like, and I'm like, yeah, no, but a lot of famous dress designers, you know, were male, like, you know, like Saint Laurent. He's like, yeah, for women. They make dress for women, but not for other dudes.
Right.
Like, how do you even work that out? Like, you're designing dresses for men.
Right.
Like, what?
Like, I'm open to the idea that, you know, fashion is so important and it's so cool to make fashion statements with what you wear, that a guy wearing a dress is this big dramatic statement about masculinity. Like, I consider myself at least, like, open to that idea. But, like, did you see the thing with Harry Styles going super viral for basically, like, posing in, like, a fashion magazine wearing a dress? And it's just, like, the thing that bothers me about it is, like, okay, listen, if you want to wear a dress, that's totally cool. I hate when the media builds it up and acts like it's some heroic shit, or as if you're some fucking genius because you had this bright idea to wear a dress. Like, it's not, it doesn't make you a hero. It just makes you a dude wearing a goofy ass outfit for a photo, and you're gonna say that it's because of fashion, but really you just are doing some goofy ass shit to get attention, and because you know that the fucking corny ass woke media is gonna treat you like you're a fucking hero for it. It's just so lame, bro.
Well, you interviewed Young Thug.
Yeah.
You asked him about the dress, right?
Yeah. He said that he needed it because of the stick. And then his album came out and he had that like exact lyric on it, which I always wondered if he was thinking about that conversation that we had when he said that lyric, or if he had already recorded that song and so that lyric was already in his head when we did the interview.
Well, number one, Young Thug could have worn other things in order to hide a rifle.
Certainly what I thought when he said it too. I'm like,
I don't
is
think,
a dress the only way you can hide
I
a
don't
gun?
think that the dress was the only option in life that Young Thug
I also
had.
think though that like there's been times in hip hop history where like Young Thug and A$AP Rocky and a few other people have been called out for like wearing a dress, and it was usually like, oh, this is kind of like a long shirt that maybe in a photo it looked like a dress or whatever. Kid Cudi was wearing a dress.
That was a dress.
That was a dress. And that's a different thing to me. You know, like, you know, Thug taking that heat for wearing this sort of like long, weird shirt. I mean, Kid Cudi had a fucking tube top on or some shit, man. That was different.
Yeah, Kid Cudi had like a prom dress on. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to, all right, it's just trolling and it's attention.
Right.
And they know that if they do this, they'll get a lot of media. And Young Thug, I think that was the real reason. Do I think Young Thug is gay? No, I don't think so. I think that he was coming out and he needed to grab as many eyeballs as possible. And the dress would do it.
Yeah.
The dress will do it. Now, I think at a certain level, though, it also comes down to a person's character and morals and what they stand on. Like, me personally, if Time magazine reached out and said, we want to put you on the cover, but you got to wear a dress, the answer would be no.
Fucking no, yeah.
As much as I would love to be on the cover of Time, you know, growing up, seeing Time magazine as a kid and knowing the importance of that magazine, if they're saying the only reason we will put you on the cover is if you wear the dress, the answer would just be no.
Right.
You could pick essentially any big platform, Good Morning America, 60 Minutes, all these platforms that I respect and I would like to be on at some point, you know, Joe Rogan, whatever. If the cost of doing business is me wearing a dress, the answer would be no. And it's not negotiable.
Right.
Right? But those are my principles and my morals and the way I want to present myself to the world. Now, if you don't care about that, for you, it's just a piece of cloth.
I'll put it like this. Like, for me, I dress for, you know, comfort and utilitarian purposes. You know, like I'm going to wear jeans and a t-shirt probably till I die because it's comfortable and easy and, you know, I can put shit in my pockets, etc. For me, when I see, like, if I even see a guy wearing like leather pants, let's scale it back a bit from the dress. I see a guy wearing leather pants and it's hot out. And I'm kind of thinking in my head, like, you fucking idiot. Like, you're gonna walk around all day sweating your ass off. You got, you know, it feels like shit. I know it feels like shit. But you're gonna walk around all day because you want us to think that you're a fucking rock star. So you're hanging out on Melrose with these leather pants on. Whatever. At least they're pants still. When I see Kid Cudi standing on stage wearing the fucking, this little dress, it's like, I just don't get it because I know you weren't wearing that dress the rest of the day. So it feels kind of like disingenuous to me. I know it doesn't feel good.
Right. It was just for the Saturday Night Live performance.
I just don't get what we're like. Are we really? Is there anyone in hip hop who really thinks this is like an admirable thing? I get it that you like want to take chances fashion wise.
I mean, Lil Yachty probably does.
Oh God. I guess I get it. Like people want to take chances fashion wise, but I don't know. I just don't.
Well, I mean, Lil B was almost the originator of this. Lil B was wearing dresses and stuff like that. He was like the original, you know, kind of cross-dresser, essentially, before Young Thug.
That's a good point. And I never had anything against that because it always seemed like Lil B was sort of like doing his, you know, it's like he was like the ultimate troll. Yeah. And that felt like that was what he was doing. He was trolling. And that was fun. Kid Cudi, it felt a little different on the SNL thing. I don't know. I never really heard him speak about it, though.
Right. Because Cudi was never a troll like that.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Lil B kind of got his platform off of that. You know what I mean? And listen, shout out to Lil B. You know, me and him have had our, differences in the past, but from what I understand, me and him are cool now.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Not that we've spoken. It's just we've had some people that we both know kind of speak, and basically, both of us have said that there's no whatever happened in the past is just the past, and neither one of us is tripping. But yeah, I mean, look, if I wore a dress, my views would be crazy right now. If I made a video and I'm wearing a dress, I can get 1 million views pretty easily, pretty quickly. But to me, it's just like, nah, it's just not me. I think you got to be yourself.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Well, we recently interviewed Gorilla Black.
Saw that.
He did 9 years for credit card fraud. Mm-hmm. And apparently you know a little something about this.
Well, yeah, I texted you after I watched the interview because it kind of freaked me out to think that in like 2003, I was running around doing mad credit card fraud around where I grew up, listening to Gorilla Black, at least some of the time, because that was like around the time that he was making a play and his album came out, I think in 2003, 2004, something like that. And that was when I first heard of him. And then many years later, when I had left the credit card fraud behind, all of a sudden he gets into it and ends up getting 9 years on a crazy ass case. And it just stood out to me because I was like, you know, he took it further than I did for sure. But the stuff that he got caught up, like I'm listening to him describing the process of like, you know, buying credit cards online from a hacker and then putting them onto the credit cards and encoding them and everything. And I'm like, this is the exact same shit that we were running around doing. He did it bigger. And I think when I was doing it, the laws were not very effective at throwing people doing this shit in jail. Because when he's describing the punishment that he got, that is so far beyond anything that I had ever heard of at that time. Because I had a couple homies get caught, like different people that I was doing credit card fraud with. One day I didn't go out with the guys, and there was this Chinese dude that I actually lived with, and he was running around and he bought like a $300 snakeskin belt or some shit at a department store, and he was using a fake credit card, and it popped up on the system that it was fake or whatever, and he tried to get out of there, and the cops ended up like spotting him, trying to make a getaway, arrested him. I think he got a bunch of restitution, and then you know, we had to pay like $15K or some shit like that. But then other than that, it was just community service. Like he had to, and it was funny because he was like kind of homophobic, and he ended up having to do his community service at like an Asian gay treatment center or some shit. So he's like coming home for the first couple of weeks. He was coming home every day being like, oh, these gay people, this is so weird. Like they're just telling us all the weird things about all these people there. And then after a little while, I think he kind of like got over his homophobia through working there, which was cool. But yeah, I mean, I just like, you know, I don't think the laws were the same, because he's talking about how each credit card that he got hit with was like considered to have $1 million worth of fraud, even if there wasn't actually $1 million worth of fraud on it or some shit.
Yeah, I mean, they threw the book at him.
Yeah.
He got 9 years.
Yeah.
So you were doing the same thing. You were getting real numbers off the dark web or wherever, and then you had a machine and you were creating credit cards with that machine. So
it wasn't dark web at the time. There were just forums where you could just, I don't know. It seems insane to me too to think that I was in my like college library on the computer just looking at these credit card forums and like sending PayPal payments to these guys who are sending us, you know,
PayPal. It wouldn't even be cash.
I don't remember how we were doing the transactions. It might have been like MoneyGram or Western Union. I remember sending Western Unions for sure at the fucking supermarket and stuff. But it was basically just like us doing that, and then we would just drive around, drive 2 hours, go to a mall, maybe do $10,000 worth of purchases, put it on eBay, maybe make $4,000 off it. I thought I was fucking Warren Buffett, bro, making like $1,000, $2,000 a day off doing this shit with my homies, just going to the mall. It seems insane now, but at the time I was geeked up off that.
You never got caught? Was there a situation that made you stop?
I was doing most of that all around like the New England area, New Hampshire, Boston, that kind of area. And then I moved to New York, and it was like a big part of my plan when I moved to New York was like, oh, I'm going to stop doing the credit card fraud stuff because I feel like New York is so crazy. So, you know, like security wise and stuff like that. And then I got to New York and I was kind of like, man, this shit is not as crazy as I thought it was. So we were definitely still putting in some work when I was living in New York, driving to Long Island, hitting the malls out there and stuff. But we did have one sort of close call where a buddy of mine went into like a video game store and he was buying like some video game systems, and the card came up as stolen or whatever. And we ended up having to basically like rush to the car. We didn't even go to the car. Like I went to the car because they weren't looking at me, but he had to end up basically like running through this fucking forest in Long Island outside the mall. And he ended up hiding inside a Barnes & Noble for like 3 hours while the cops are like going crazy around the parking lot. And I'm just like waiting in a parking lot in my car for him. And then eventually him and the two girls, I was with these two girls that he had introduced me to. And then he eventually makes it back to the car. But like by the end of that experience, I was very much feeling like, all right, you know what?
That's
like,
it.
This is not good for my mental health. Like, as much as I was enjoying the money and the thrill of it, the way that I felt every single time that I went out and did it, it just like wasn't worth it after a while. I was just a nervous mess. Like it just didn't feel good. And around that time is when I started to make money playing online poker, and that's when I basically was like, all right, fuck this shit.
So you got lucky, basically.
Basically, yes.
Right, because just recently HBO dropped this new series, and TJX6 was on it.
I need to watch this. I didn't see it yet.
I watched it. Because TJ, who I don't know, made this tweet where he was like, oh, Vlad offered me $50,000 to do an interview. I ain't doing that or something. And I'm like, huh? I've never even contacted this guy. Then he DM'd me, was like, come on, man, let's do the interview.
He's a master of scamming on many fronts.
Yeah, he's the master scammer, right? He's a cap master. But you actually interviewed him.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very familiar with him, just to be honest, right? So then watching this documentary, it's like a series, right? And TJ's actually on the last episode. He's like the finale, and they sort of break down his whole thing, and it's like it's kind of interesting in a criminal sort of way, I guess, where he's just talking about his various scams. So like the easiest scam he said is that you make an IG page of like a hot girl and you post a bunch of pictures and you keep posting it and, you buy a bunch of followers or whatever to make it look legit. And then you just have dudes are going to start DMing you. And then you just like ask for, some flight money or something like that. Then you just keep it. And then you step it up by I guess he had scammed Black China.
Yeah. He told me about that on the interview.
Yeah. So apparently he got Black China to do a post on one of his fake Instagram pages.
Right.
Paid her. And then made more money by having a bunch of people order iPhones, 4 iPhones for $1,000 or something, and then just kept all the money.
Right.
And then it kind of showed his, the songs that started to pop off is him basically breaking down how to do all these different credit card scams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's your take on TJ?
Well, what I thought was funny is after I did that interview with him, because at that time, we were so excited about TJ rap-wise, just because we had never really, all these rappers that I listen to from Flint and Detroit now, he was really one of the first guys that I had heard who, he just had such a weird flow and he was just doing so many weird things on tracks that we just thought he was the funniest rapper at the time. And he had a bunch of songs we were going crazy for. And and then I remember he comes in, he does that interview. He's saying so much crazy shit in the interview. I'm asking him, you used to scam. You're not going to scam anymore now, right? That you're popping as a rapper. He's like, no, I think I'm going to still keep doing that shit. He's just he said he's talking about being in red rooms online, which is where you watch a girl kill herself or you watch somebody.
What? Okay. So red room, seeing someone die, and he knows about this. He's seen it, allegedly.
I mean, he said on the interview that he had seen it. I know about it, I heard about it, but it was you hear about things. I've never been on the dark web, so I wasn't going to go hunt it down. But that's what stood out to me is after we get done the interview, he goes right up to his manager and he's just laughing that shit was fucking hard. That shit going to be viral. And that's when I realized oh man, he's putting on an act for the camera a little bit to make it seem a little bit crazier than it is. I don't know if he ever actually saw the Red Room. Personally, I wouldn't want to see that, but
yeah. I think the scamming sounds real, though.
Some of it, but I've also heard that a lot of the things that he says in the songs don't necessarily make sense.
Huh.
That he's sort of giving you hacking or scamming information, but it's kind of only halfway realistic.
Right. I mean, because we've interviewed Bandman Kevo. He went to prison for it.
And I think he said basically that TJ just, if anything, he was kind of a low-level scammer who was really good at representing in his music that he was, he made it sound really entertaining in his songs, but I'm pretty sure that if you look at Bandman Kevo, we probably made 100, maybe not 100, a lot more than TJ ever made from scamming, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, we've interviewed Coca Vango.
Right.
Light-skinned Keisha's boyfriend. I
saw that clip.
You saw a clip? Yeah, about the whole iPhone scam and everything else like that. And we've interviewed other guys who did real estate scams and, mafia guys and so forth. I mean, if that's your thing, I just feel all that shit catches up to you.
These days, fuck yeah, dude. I was thinking about that with the Gorilla Black thing. I don't know if he mentioned exactly how he got caught, but I mean, we used to drive to the mall, park our car in the parking garage, walk up in there, do all these purchases, walk up out of there, hop in the car, drive out of there. With all the cameras and shit now, that seems you can't do that. I wouldn't want to drive a rental car there because they're gonna the plates out the rental car are gonna get you I don't know, maybe you could park 2 miles away and walk to the mall or some shit like that. But it just feels these days, dude, that risk. I don't know. I'm glad I don't gotta take that risk now.
Plus, there's so many ways to make legal money these days with the internet. Like, honestly, like to even go down that route is just like, it's just lazy. Honestly, it's just lazy. And the risk involved is dumb. Like, okay, you made a bunch of money. Then you did 9 years in prison. 9 years. During those 9 years, you made no money.
Away from your kids and your family.
Yeah, and you're around a bunch of men.
He emphasized that hard, like just how selfish that was, you know? Like if I had to not see my kid for 9 years right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you come out, he's 10. He's talking, he's going to school.
For what?
He doesn't know you.
For some money?
For some money.
Hell no. I'd rather be broke as hell. Like, you know, like, I don't know if I believe that, but Vlad, we can't go back to the streets, man.
Well, you know, speaking of money, me and Michael Jai White, we had this really heated debate over money buying you happiness. And he feels it doesn't. I feel it does. As someone who, you know, you've been broke through various parts in your life, and now you're not a billionaire, but you're, you know, you're financially very comfortable and making money, doing something you like to do, and so forth. Do you feel that money buys you happiness?
Yes.
I agree. I'm right there with you.
I think there's only so much happiness that money can buy you.
You think?
Like, I don't think that if I was you know, let's say hypothetically, let's say I have $10 million right now.
Okay.
I do not, for the record. But let's say I did. I don't think that if I have $100 million, then I'm going to be 10 times happier. But I definitely think that if you have $1 million versus a person who has $1,000, that your excuse for not being happier is got to be pretty weak, dude. Because all the things that were, not all the things, but a huge percentage of the things that were tough for me or that made my life stressful or whatever for me when I was not making much money just don't exist for me anymore. Like,
right.
There's so many things I don't have to worry about. I used to have to park. I would do a couple of interviews downtown at my store, and then I would drive back to my house in Koreatown, and then I would have to drive the van, the BMX van that we had, like a mile and a half to some random area, park it, then ride my bike back because of street sweep and shit, get my car, move that to that same area, and then move back. And this is like me parking the cars for like over an hour after I get done doing interviews. It's like 1, 2 in the morning. Now, I just drive home and just park my car in the garage. It's like, I promise you, like, those little things, dude, like just living in a house in a yard with a big gate and not having to be downtown and not having to go get a piece of pizza and see some guy shitting all over himself. I mean, there's a lot of shit that I'm really thankful for from money. Like, I wouldn't, you know, granted, I could be making a lot less money and still have a kid. But I mean, there's a certain level, I think, where it's kind of irresponsible to have a kid if you don't have some level of security financially. You know, it's like there's a lot of things that money will afford you that will make you a lot happier if you're not totally unreasonable.
I mean, yeah. I mean, when the pandemic hit, the fact that financially there was no stress involved.
Yes.
In my life, it was like, yeah, I'm not happy about what's happening right now, but my rent is paid. My bills are all covered. All my employees are fine. No one had a reduction in salary. Everyone kept all their health benefits.
Same for the record, yeah.
Yeah. You know, the ability to help other people makes me happy.
Right.
That right there, having money and having the ability to give that money to other people who deserve it, you know, who have earned it, makes me happy.
Yeah, having a team makes me happy. Knowing that there's like 10 people who can pay their bills and take care of their kids or take care of their whatever they have going on. That, you know, I the other day I got a DM from one of my employees, said like, thank you so much. Like, this is the best job I ever had. And I'm really, you know, just thank you for making my life this way.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I could like really drill down into my team and keep it as small as possible and try to get the most work out of like 2 people. But ultimately, like if you can create a business and create that and give people opportunities and stuff, that's just another example of money being able to make you happy. Now, I think if I had, you know, $5,000 a month coming in and I wanted to live in a small town and live a very different lifestyle, I think I could be happy too. But, you know, living in LA, I mean, there's always the opportunity for you to upgrade your existence, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the thing is that money itself may not necessarily make you happy, but lack of money will definitely make you unhappy. Man, listen, I've had times in my life where I didn't know if I was going to be able to pay my rent next month. That is an unhappy situation.
I remember back right around the time I started No Jumper, and I was doing vlogs and stuff, and I wanted to buy a GoPro, and I was talking to my accountant at the time, and he's like, yeah, let's wait till next month.
Right.
It's like $400 for a GoPro, like $300 or some shit. And I remember just thinking like, fuck, like this is where my business is at right now. I gotta wait a month to buy a fucking GoPro so I can make a video with it. Like, you know, I was like, really, like when I look back at that, I'm like, damn, it's a really good feeling that I can't imagine feeling that way at this point in my life. Like, and there's just a lot of little things like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, stability makes you happy. And anyone, you know, and I love Michael and everything, but I'm just 100%, you know, not on the same page with him when it comes to this. And I feel like a lot of people, especially if they don't have money, they'll be like, yeah, you know, don't really make you happy. Like, it's one of those things where stability, savings, living where you want to live in a safe area. You know what I mean? I've lived in fucked up areas before where when I would walk outside, it'd be dangerous. You know what I mean? Not having to live in a gated community makes me happy. Knowing that a random person can't just drive in front of my house and knock on my door.
Right.
That makes me happy. Flying first class as opposed to being coached, shoved behind two heavy people, which I've had.
I still haven't flown first class. So.
Oh, you haven't?
I did one time. One time. But
let me tell you, once you start flying first or business, you can't go back into coaching.
That's why
it's just not a possibility anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just being able to just, like stretch your feet and put the seat, you know, like I usually sleep on flights. I can put the seat all the way back, go to sleep, wake up, refreshed. That makes me happy.
I get off on being cheap.
Okay.
Something about it that I just really like.
No, that's all good. We're all cheap.
I'm sitting in that uncomfortable seat just thinking I saved $500.
Yeah.
$500 saved. Fuck you, United Air.
I spend that shit. You know, does buying more watches make me that much happier? No, not really. But, you know, there's so many other things you could spend money on that really does make you happy, and having more of it and having savings. Having savings will make you more happy than anything else. Let me just put that out there in the world, because it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's how much money you could save and then invest and grow on top of it. That's the hard part. Right. There's always something to spend money on. There's no shortage. You know what I mean? Like, person's gonna have 100,000 and blow that in one day.
Oh yeah.
And be back to zero again.
Like, me and you can both easily imagine, like, if I were to get, you know, some kind of terrible sickness or something where I couldn't really work for 6 months.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be all right, you know?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
I'll be able to pull the business together. We're going to change some shit up. We're going to have to hire some people to do interviews for me maybe. We're going to hire, we're going to do something different, but it's not going to kill me. And 5 years ago, if I couldn't work for 6 months, it would have killed me. I would have actually gone bankrupt probably. You know, I just wouldn't have been able to, the wheels would have fallen off and I wouldn't have been able to keep it going. And having that level of security, I think it means more than a lot of people are willing to accept.
Yeah, facts. Well, I mean, speaking of Michael Jai White, we had an interesting discussion also where he brought something up. He said that when Black Lives Matter was really gathering steam, a lot of white people would say all lives matter. But now that you have Stop Asian Hate, you don't really hear anyone saying stop all hate.
Right.
It's an interesting kind of phenomenon.
It would be nice if everybody could just say, like, stop hate. But that's just it seems a little too generic now, you know? But I mean, I do, like, I feel what people are trying to get across when they say, oh, all lives matter. You know, like, I get what they're saying. It would be nice. I mean, like, because there is some weird shit, like, you know, I'll forever be listening to podcasts and they'll be like, you know, women are so strong, especially black women. And I'm just like, what is that? This is like a weird tick that it feels like everybody is sort of like falling in line with, that we're just going to sort of like praise people based on their victim class. And it's like, I agree, black women are incredible, but like, you know, do you kind of have to like sort of slight all the other races when you make that statement? I don't know. It feels kind of weird to me. And I don't know, a lot of that sloganeering, because you know what it is that on the other side of it is that, there's white people seeing this, like the rise in like white nationalism and stuff is all, I think, tied directly back to that. Because if you encourage people to like stand up for their racial group, then eventually white people are going to do that too. And it's not going to be good to have everybody sort of like warring against each other. At some point, there has to be some sort of attempt at cohesion,
Yeah, but I think that the white people that sort of war against that are sort of missing the point. And the point is that, yes, everyone knows that all lives matter. It's just the fact that Black lives were not treated the same, with the same preciousness, as other races. You see what I'm saying? It's not like you're not seeing white people get shot by the police for holding a house phone, like it just happened. Like a lot
of people say that you do see that a lot, and that you just don't really hear about it in the news, and nobody really cares to make a big deal out of it.
I don't know.
There's a lot of white people getting killed by cops too, if you look into it.
This is true, but I feel like there definitely is a slant, and there definitely is an uneven number, and there's lots of reasons for it. And
right, like Stop Asian Hate makes sense because we live in a world where my entire life I never heard that sentiment. I never heard, oh, we need to protect Asian people against racism. Just wasn't really a thing that was said or thought about. So I understand it's like a correction, because Black Lives Matter exists because so many people feel like Black lives were treated as if they really didn't matter for all these years, And so I understand a lot of this like sloganeering and stuff is sort of, it's a correction. It's an attempt to correct imbalances in our society. I just wonder if that is a good long-term strategy, because I feel like it's only a matter of time until every racial group is really just like fighting for power. And I think that gets kind of ugly at a certain point.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's a fighting for power as opposed to a fight for equality.
But if it just stops at equality, then I agree.
Yeah.
But I think that like, even if like equality was reached, that you're still gonna have like, the more galvanized these groups are, that they're gonna like keep fighting against each other. And in the long term, I just wonder if some of this sort of takes us away from the potential of everybody just getting along over time, which I also feel is probably extremely unlikely. But
I don't know. I think that in our lifetime it's unlikely. But I think that if you fast forward a couple hundred years, maybe a couple thousand years, at some point the world will just be more and more global, and things just stop mattering as much.
Well, ultimately,
people are intermixing now more than ever. So it's everyone's turning beige. Like,
we want to get to a place where, like, wouldn't you agree that the best world to live in is the world in which the color of your skin is just totally irrelevant data? Like, what color your hair is? Like, nobody cares. Nobody's gonna
look at little kids. Little kids don't care what
exactly
they all look like in kindergarten, but they get older and they get taught that this is good, this is bad, this is better, this is worse. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens, but it's not natural. It's taught. So I don't know. What'd you think of Chet Hanks announcing it's gonna be a white boy summer, and then getting a bloody nose?
Wait, who gave him a bloody nose?
What, his girlfriend, or maybe his head was bloody or something. You don't remember that?
No, I didn't see that him getting beat up or anything. But I mean, I thought the white boy summer thing was a funny idea. But then we put it out with the old English. It kind of looked like every white power shirt I ever seen in my life. And I was kind of like, oh, that was maybe not the best graphic design decision.
You never saw this?
Oh, shit, she fucked him up. Oh, yeah, and they were saying he called her like a ghetto-ass bitch and all this shit, yeah. It's crazy, like, you'll have somebody get famous and then, like, within, like, a couple weeks or months, it's like, well, actually, no, we don't like him anymore. He's a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, Chet Hanks is a weird one, man. I remember I spoke to him at one point and we had an interview scheduled. And like, I think like 30 minutes before the interview was supposed to start, he just said he's not going to make it. And it was like, there's no reason. There was no rescheduling. There was no apology. It was just like, yeah, I'm not gonna make it. And it's like, yo, you do know that a bunch of other people have spent their time and money to make this happen. And I know you're Tom Hanks' son. You probably don't understand that because you've never actually worked.
Right.
You were just given money your whole life to be a bum and to be a recovering drug addict or whatever the hell you go through. But other people out here actually work and actually, you know what I mean? Like the money is one thing, but the time is something different.
Right.
And so it's like, it's that clown shit.
At least he made it easy on me because when I asked him to do an interview, he said, I got a movie coming up, so I can't do it right now, but I'll get back to you like once I find out if this movie's happening or not. And then I didn't hear back. But
yeah, you got it better than me.
At least I didn't strung along. Yeah.
You know, we talk about the whole Asian thing. What'd you think about YG's song "Meet the Flockers" taken down?
I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Because, all right, rap music is full of, you know, so many instances that we could point to of young black men basically offering up, you know, antisocial perspectives on their own community, on, you know, really white people too, talking about like doing things to white people. You're going to find like the one example of a black dude talking about robbing Asian people that we could think of, and I could think of some other ones too, but it's a fairly infrequent trope. But the idea that is so offensive because it targets a racial group that we've been talking about a lot lately, it just seems insane to me. And it's like, but the one thing I want to know, this is what I want to know. Did the label say, hey, YG, we think we should remove this song because it's offensive and it'll just make our lives easier if we change this song up? And YG said, all right, fuck it. That I'm cool with. That makes sense to me. If it was Apple and Spotify and shit saying, we are going to remove the song, I can't get down with that. I don't like the free speech being suppressed by the tech platforms. Like, that shit really seems fucked up to me. And the thing about it, too, is that, yes, we all can probably assume that YG has robbed some Asian people's homes before, but he could have been speaking totally theoretically, right? And I don't want to see all these horrorcore songs getting taken out. I grew up listening to death metal songs where they're literally like talking about, you know, gutting families and, you know, it's like horror movie shit in the lyrics. So to me, I mean, there are Misfit songs that I love that have lyrics that are like so heinous that I would never even want to sing along to it in front of someone. And I think of rap like that too. It's like I grew up listening to fucking Cannibal Corpse and all this shit where they're talking about crazy axe murderer shit. So the idea that YG can't rap about robbing somebody's house, because I see where this goes from here. They're going to come for everybody else. All these, like in the UK, all these grime diss drill songs, they get removed from YouTube because they're gangbanging too hard and talking about stabbing people and shit. I don't want America to turn into that where somebody puts out a song smoking on somebody's ops and it gets taken off YouTube because the tech platforms have decided that it should be. I mean, that's a scary future, man.
Yeah, I remember China Mac was here last week and we talked about that song. And it's like, it's based on reality.
Right.
Asian people, especially immigrants, don't really trust the banks, so they keep their cash at home.
Right.
Asians like to wear 24 karat gold as opposed to 18 or 14 karat, which is what everyone else essentially wears.
Okay.
Which is more valuable. Mm-hmm. And once again, they don't trust the banks, they keep it at their house.
Right.
So, you know, like I remember talking to BG Knockout, and he himself was not robbing houses, but he had homies that did, and they would target Asian homes. It's a real thing. He's talking about an actual real thing. And I mean, is it technically giving instructions on how to do it? Yeah, I mean, I guess it could, but you could, any rap song or music period that talks about violence is technically giving you a blueprint of what to do. So what exactly is the difference? Is that like, you're right, Asian people, since there's a focus on it now because of the murders that happened in Atlanta and everything else like that, and then more so what's happening with, you know, COVID and it originating out of China and there being an overall anti-Chinese sort of bent that's happening right now, I could see why these things are sort of coming together. But I think what people really need to realize, and I thought about this the other day, is that you could be upset over what China did. You could say China's the reason why the whole world is fucked up because COVID originated from there. They didn't take it seriously quickly enough. They let it spread outside the borders, and now it fucked up the whole world. But if that makes you mad, that should make you mad at the Chinese government, not the people.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane. The idea that, because of something that might have happened in Wuhan, that some Asian lady's getting attacked on the street. I mean, obviously that logic just comes from such any person who would do that is so warped in the head that you could kind of imagine that they couldn't really be reasoned with. Like, that's why, I listened to Ben Baller's podcast for a bit because I interviewed him recently, and he said, he's just moments on the podcast where he's kind of saying it's not cool to beat up an elderly Asian person. It's
yeah,
I don't think that the psychopaths who are doing that are listening to your podcast or are capable of being reasoned with, because I don't know how any logical person could draw the connection between Wuhan fucking what are they called, wet markets?
Yeah.
And, some Asian lady going on the market or whatever. I don't want to seem like I'm being insensitive to Asian people when I say that I think that song should have stayed on YouTube and Spotify and everything. It's just my attitude is, if a song is offensive, your instinct shouldn't be, let's remove it from the internet. And I agree that there is some stuff that, I don't think Spotify should be indebted to let every white supremacist band put their catalogs on their platform, I think that's reasonable. But when you're talking about an artist who's a respected, important artist, and, now this song just on Spotify just doesn't exist as it was originally recorded.
Yeah.
I would rather have the hateful, awful version of it, and I do think it's bad. It's certainly not good to encourage, even beyond encouraging the robbing of Asian people's households, I don't think it's good to encourage young black men in California to go rob people's houses, period. You're going to end up in jail for 10 years. But the song exists. The song is a big part of YG's career. I don't really see what the W is in removing it, personally. I mean, I don't know. And you know what it is? It's just the tech platforms bowing down to the fucking employees because that's the Google employees were the ones putting all this pressure for them to remove it, and they fall in line with the employees because they don't want to deal with the bad PR. Inmates are running the asylum.
Yeah, I mean, Google probably has a lot of Asian employees, especially with them being based in Silicon Valley, which I grew up in the Bay. I grew up around Asians. To me, Asian hate wasn't ever really a thing. I've never seen Asians really targeted. Period.
No.
But
there's definitely a lot of really, really negative stereotypes about Asian people that when I think it seemed totally normal to me as a kid. And when I think about it now, I'm like, God, it's pretty fucked up how comfortable we felt saying some of those stereotypes when I was younger,
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of things, age gracefully. I was just talking to someone this morning about, DMX. And you love DMX. You love the song Where the Hood At, but you look at the first verse, it's like, I ain't gonna explain fucking a man. Yeah. If we even had the beef, I ain't shaking your hand.
Show no love to homo thugs, dude.
At the time, this was a hit song. In 2021, this would not be a hit song. It would, it might not be pulled off the platforms, but it would not be pushed. It would not be on Rap Caviar. Let's put it like this.
It would be national outrage. When I was interviewing this artist, Trapland Pat, the other day, who's an artist from Florida, who's signed to Fredo Bang, and I was telling him about the SNL skit / movie Pat, which is basically about a person who is maybe a man, maybe a woman.
Trans, basically.
Kind of
trans,
vaguely trans.
Yeah.
And I'm explaining the concept
non-binary, I think, is the proper word.
Yeah, the joke throughout the whole show for people who haven't seen it is that you can't figure out whether it's a man or a woman, and there's constant contradictory information. But I'm explaining the movie to him and realizing as I'm explaining it, wow, this would never be able to exist today. This would be seen as pure hate. And it really wasn't. It was really just funny.
Right. I guess Kehlani came out as lesbian recently.
Right. And I thought that was old news.
Yeah. Well, she has a baby, and she was dating YG.
That's what I'm saying. YG just, there's nowhere to go from there.
There's nowhere to go.
That's the top of the mountain.
Yeah, she talks about, on the privilege of being a straight presenting artist. I almost think these days it's the other way around. I feel like Lil Nas X might have faded away if he didn't come out as gay.
Yeah, I mean, there's an extent to which I understand that if you come out as gay and you live in Oklahoma, you're probably going to get beat up and thrown in the trash can at lunch. You know, like there's a lot of bad things that could happen to you in that situation. If you are a pop star with a woke fan base, being gay is not a liability at all. If anything, it's going to help your career. It's going to insulate you against criticism. It's going to make this huge, not a huge percentage, but this very rabid fan base get in line behind you because they're going to want to support you. Now, granted, you know, certainly we see the gays eat their own for sure too. Like, you know, definitely you see gay dudes attacking gay artists because they feel like they should act a certain way or whatever.
Really?
But
like who?
I can't even think of a good example, but I don't know. Don't you feel like you just, when you see these communities, that it's like they can turn very petty towards their own kind from time to time?
I just can't think of two gay artists beefing with each other.
I bet somebody could think of one in the comments. Yeah, you're right. No, but not even like artists beefing with each other, but more like I could imagine Lil Nas saying some vaguely offensive things about gay people that would like torpedo his career right now because his own people would take such issue with it. That'd be kind of hard to imagine, but I don't know. I don't think that, I think at a certain point you have to start being a little bit honest about it and say that, yes, like being not heterosexual certainly is going to open up your fan base to a big audience at a certain point.
I don't know anyone's career I don't know anyone's career that disappeared because they came out as gay in the last 20 years.
I think McConan might take issue with that. Just because I feel like 2013, 2014, I feel like he still kind of got a lot of shit for coming out as gay. And I feel like, you know, we don't know where his career would have gone otherwise, but I feel like he's somebody, well, I guess him being shelved by OVO was probably the more disastrous thing either way.
Or maybe him not really coming out with music that really reacts might be a better reason for that, because Tuesday was a dope song, and he actually had a collection of songs that were pretty dope.
Oh, I thought he was
at the time.
Fire at that time.
No,
and I think he still is super talented. But,
I remember I was going through some of his catalog at the time. Like, yo, this dude's pretty dope. Like, he's got his own kind of thing going on, and he came out as gay, and then remember at one point he was dating, what's his name, Lil Peep, I guess, and it was sort of like, you know, that was the hot artist at the time also. So I'm like, you know, just being gay will not keep you going.
No.
You got to follow it up with some music. Like, you know, Lil Nas X came out with Montero and ended up being a big song. It's like, he's not just famous just for being gay. He's famous for the songs. Frank Ocean, a lot of dope music. DJ Mr. C is still doing his thing. You know what I mean? Like, he still has a job. He's still DJing, still doing his thing. I mean, it's a different thing. But you can't just say, I'm gay, now I want to just live off my past catalog for the rest of my life and not do anything. You got to still produce new music. And I haven't heard anything that McConan has put out in the last 5 years, really.
He's been putting shit out.
He has? It's just not reacting?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
he just put something new out. I still got to listen to it. So.
Okay, maybe I got to check it out. I don't know. NBA YoungBoy. I guess his girlfriend's pregnant with his 8th child now. A new girl is now pregnant with his 8th child, 21 years old. He's locked up, and I've heard some breakdowns of his case, and he's facing a bunch of mandatory minimums. It's crazy at 21 what he's going through right now.
He's probably gonna get 10 years, huh?
I don't know. But the fact that he can't bond out, can't bail out, you know, it's pretty sad considering where he is. Because I interviewed his brother in BRJ3. And I really asked him, I said, yo, is there no adult in the room? Essentially, he goes, well, he's just going to do what he's going to do. He doesn't listen. He's like, I got a bunch of security for him. He doesn't want to use them. He wants to just go out on his own, go to the mall by himself and get into an altercation. You know? It's sad seeing that.
He has what every artist out there wants. You know, he can make exactly the kind of music he wants. Doesn't have to try to make a pop song, whatever.
Nope.
Probably could make, 10 million this year, something like that. You know, stupid amounts of money just touring, putting out albums, whatever. And he just, it's like certain guys, they just really love that street shit so much that it's really hard. The idea of like them getting rich and not toting guns, it just doesn't make sense in their head because that's what they want to do in their life. They want to drink lean and carry firearms.
Yeah, I mean, 5-year-old foreign just got caught with a gun. I don't get that part. The baby got caught with a gun not too long ago on like Rodeo Drive. I mean, shit, isn't the point of making money so you don't have to carry a gun yourself? Like,
yeah, but
that's what I think. I get it because I have security and security does get annoying. Like you'd rather not have security with you. It's like, as much as I talk about security, it's not that I like having security. It's annoying to have someone with you everywhere you go and, deal with that. But at the end of the day, man, like getting caught with a pistol when you're already rich, it's just like, why? I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of us take that risk on a fairly regular basis. But, when I think about it, like if I put myself in 5-year-old foreign's shoes, he lives in Jersey. He's got to go to the ATM. I think it was in Jersey where he got popped. Mm-hmm. But he goes to the ATM. He parks his car in the illegal parking spot, which that's a stupid ass thing to do when you got a gun in your pocket. If you got a gun in your pocket, you're supposed to follow all the other rules so that there won't be any chance for you to get searched. But if I'm 5-year-old foreign and I need to just run over and hit the ATM and maybe I'm going to go do this, and the other thing, I mean, he's a famous ass rapper, but does he have enough money to be spending a couple $1,000s to call up security just so he can run on over to the fucking ATM? I don't know. A lot of these guys, they don't have money like some people probably think. And even if 5-year-old foreign does have kind of a lot of money, I mean, if he's just running over to the ATM real quick, it's like, are you really going to order security to come follow you along to this? A lot of people, they value their freedom. They don't want to, I don't want to see 5-year-old foreign get caught at the fucking ATM either, man. But like, when I hear that, I'm like, this is why maybe all the rappers who just love guns should like move to a new city. Like when I was talking to ESTG, who I just interviewed, he was saying that in Kentucky, in Louisville, in his neighborhood, is like everybody walking around with a gun. Like everybody. Right. Like it's nothing. And when I think about it, maybe all these rappers could just move to the same area where they could just freely carry guns, because for some reason they all want to live in California and New York yeah. where it's like really strict gun punishment.
Nah, I feel you. Yeah, go to Atlanta. A concealed carry permit is like, getting a driver's license essentially. Yeah. Nah, I feel you. And ARAB got 45 years recently, which just killed me.
That's crazy.
It just fucking killed me. It was just like, damn. 45 years. He's only 38. And, everyone started blaming me once again for it, which is fine. I had nothing to do with that case. He himself said I had nothing to do. Nothing he ever said on Vlad TV was brought up in the trial or whatever else. And it's just disheartening knowing someone who you're cool with, who's been a guest on your show a bunch of times, and you love their music, and Swizz was the one who introduced us to begin with, and everything. And it's just like, to get that type of time as being a relatively young man is really fucked up my whole week.
45 is, I'm talking about YoungBoy getting 10. Like, wow, that's so devastating. He could come out at 31.
Yeah.
Have a life. It's like, It sucks to lose your 20s, but getting 45 years when you're
coming out
already
83, 40. I think. Like, it's fucked up. It's fucked up. I'm just gonna leave it at this. You and I are both vaccinated right now. Mm-hmm. I got Moderna. What'd you get?
I think I have Pfizer. I forget, but I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and as we're speaking, the world as a whole is going up in cases. India is absolutely a disaster.
I saw that. What is the reason for that?
We really don't know, because at one point it looked like it was just going away. Like India had some of the lowest cases in the world. It was like going down to damn near nothing.
Right.
And then I think it had something to do with a bunch of festivals. You had all these big festivals had these huge gatherings, and maybe there's like a double mutant strain or something, where India is essentially the epicenter right now for COVID. more people are getting it. I think like 350,000 people in a day got it, which will probably even be more by the time this video comes out. 2,500 people died in a day that they can't get rid of the bodies fast enough. And honestly, all the anti-vaxxers out there are going to keep us from reaching herd immunity and are going to keep us like this.
I feel like a lot of the anti-vaxxers have already like deleted their tweets and are not really referencing like, you know, I have a lot of people in my life I know who I had the conversation about vaccines with 6 months ago, and they were like, I would never, and now they're on a waiting list or they already got it or whatever, because it's just so fucking obvious at this point that it's safe. The only way to get back to normal life.
Yeah. But no, I know people who were anti-vaxxers then and they're anti-vaxxers now. I know a bunch of them. Some of them are my actual friends, which keeps me from going as hard as I would like to on this shit. But it's like, you know, and you see it in places like Israel, which ramped up very quickly, but then it kind of slowed down in terms of the percentage of the population because certain people just don't want to take it. And those people, I mean, in one way you could say, well, they're just affecting themselves because if you're vaccinated and they're not, it doesn't really affect you. But essentially, they keep it going.
I just think it's so selfish and shitty for anyone to be so confident in their own dumbass opinions that they're going to just completely disregard science and regarding something that clearly doesn't just only affect you, it affects other people as well. Like I know me personally, I was already, you know, I think being fairly respectful of the COVID thing. I kept doing interviews, but, you know, me and everybody on my team was getting tested every couple of weeks. And I was like, I wasn't going anywhere besides work. I was just doing work and then coming back. But I mean, you know, my mom got COVID and my mom got deathly ill. And there was a moment where I really thought, you know, like this could be it. Like I could really lose my mom. The thing that I've been the most afraid of my whole life could happen now instead of 10, 20 years from now because of COVID. And after that, it became really hard for me to have like a rational conversation with somebody who was telling me that the vaccination was a death sentence or whatever. It's like, bro, my parents are so much more happy and relaxed right now that they're vaccinated, you know? They're walking around, they're doing, you know, my mom was living, you know, a lot of people can't relate to like, yeah, you're 21 and you got a six pack and if you get COVID, you're going to be fine. Sure. My mom's 69. Yeah. I mean, she was trapped in the house. She's going everywhere with a mask on. She didn't want to go near her friends. She didn't want to do anything. And it's like, I don't know. I just think it's super unreasonable and shitty for people to act like they don't want it.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't start flying until I got the vaccine. I didn't start meeting with people until I had the vaccine. It feels so much better to have the vaccine. Like you're just so much like it's like a sigh of relief. And, I mean, everyone who's thinking that it's some sort of weird poison or some sort of weird whatever, based on just some shit in their own head. There's no science behind it. There's no facts behind it. And it's going to keep the world at this point for the foreseeable future. We could still be here 3-4 years from now. We really could. We really could. But I took the vaccine as soon as I possibly could.
Same.
When they tell me that I need a booster, I'm going to be right there first in line to get that booster shot. And I think what really needs to happen is that these countries need to put their foot down and say, if you're not vaccinated, you can't go to this event, fly. They're already saying you can't go to school. They're already shutting down the schools for people that are non-vaccinated. Europe recently announced that the European Union will allow vaccinated people to travel into their country. So I can finally go back to Europe, which I've been wanting to do forever. You know, events, sporting events, concerts, everything else like that. I feel the government should just put their foot down and say, if you're not vaccinated, you just can't come in here. You're not welcome. The end. Yeah,
I don't think you have a right to put everybody else at risk, you know, when it comes to something this serious.
Yep.
And it's hard for people to fathom that, especially as Americans. We're so married to the idea that we are this autonomous, that we should have our rights. You know, it's the same reason why our gun laws are strict or looser than most countries. There's a lot of things, but I mean, when it comes to something like this, it's just, you know, I totally agree. Like if you're the NFL, you're doing the Super Bowl, you cannot let motherfuckers in here without having approval that they're vaccinated and shit. It's just way too risky. It's way too much of a liability for them. Even if it wasn't just the right thing to do, it just seems clear to me that they, from a legal standpoint, they almost certainly have to do this.
There you go. Adam22, no jumper. Appreciate you coming through.
Appreciate
Until
it, man.
next time. Peace.
Much love.